What is the craziest thing you've seen somebody do at the workplace? I work at a printing company. We often print on foil paper. That's aluminum foil laminated to regular paper. On the press the rolls spin pretty fast and are up to 5 feet in diameter. They are essentially massive 1,500 pound capacitors. One guy stands there holding his hand to the roll as it spins and waits for an unsuspecting passerby. When the victim walks by he reaches out to them and shoots a thick, crackling arc of static electricity at them. Up to a foot away. He literally has a bright lightning bolt shooting from his fingertips. A guy I used to work with at a Sonic drive-in once hopped out the drive-through window while wearing skates to chase down a woman who'd left her credit card. My co-worker didn't quite get to her before she got out of the lot. But he persevered and caught up with her at the light about a quarter mile down the road. I was thoroughly impressed. I was operation duty officer for an airline in Canada. Our office was on the second floor of a hangar with planes and stuff. I had to supervise flight dispatchers. In those days, printers were not really reliable and one of the dispatchers seemed to be very unlucky with them. He was trying to print a flight plan with the weather forecast, but every time the paper would jam. After a certain amount of time, he had to redo the whole flight plan because it had expired. After the third time of redoing his flight plan, when the paper jammed in the printer again, he just took the printer and threw it out of the window. It flew by the wing of an ATR-42 and crash-landed next to the landing gear. Everyone in the office went livid. I had to leave because I couldn't hold my laughter in. In those days, printers were not really reliable. I see little has changed. One of my first jobs was at an amusement park, and if you were a good employee, showed up on time and sober, you would get advanced pretty quickly. Soon I was in charge of giving people breaks and training new employees, which was a pretty sweet job. You got to basically do what you wanted as long as everyone got their break on time and paid slightly more. One day I go to give a break to a new guy. He smiles and takes his bag full of change, containing 1-2 grand in 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s this late in the day, and runs off to presumably lock it in the little safes they give us to hold the money. The guy never came back. Security and management come by. They ask me a bunch of questions about him. And eventually they realize that he gave completely fake information and worked one day so he could steal a couple $1,000s. They never found the guy. What kind of company trusts the new guy with a few $1,000s cash? A guy showed up for a job interview at my work municipality. The job he applied for was an opening as a police officer. Now it clearly states on the application that you must go through a background check. This dumbass comes in for the interview, agrees to go have a background check, and quickly gets arrested for his armed robbery charges he knew he had warrants for. A long-time employee at McDonald's said you would not get burned if you stuck your hand in the fryer oil and pulled it out real quick. I said you would. He showed me. He got burned. I work at a med school and I was in a meeting full of PhDs and MDs. Well, the meeting got a little heated and one of doctors who was arguing climbed up on the table and started tap dancing while screaming, "You can't fire me. I've been here forever. I can say whatever I want." It was hilarious. Edit. I guess I should clarify that. In general, he's great. Nice guy. Loves the students and will do whatever he can to help them be successful. But if you give him an opening, he do or say something stupid that makes you seem like an idiot. He is on that like white on rice. He has a low tolerance for bull and the majority of his antics are directed at his colleagues who get caught up in being medical doctors or scientists and in the process lose sight of what their job is, which is helping people, students, etc. And no, he didn't get fired. Beautiful thing called tenure. I make sure to sit next to him at every meeting. It's guaranteed entertainment. He gives little to no S. I worked at a monkey lab and Mark, the night security guard, would take the security truck, pick up some booze, drive 80 miles to San Francisco, pick up a hooker, drive the 80 miles back to his trailer, drink more, get laid, drive the hooker back to San Francisco, and then would return to work still drunk. Right before the morning crew showed up. On a fairly regular basis. I think the biggest crime here is that he was paying a hooker for 160 miles of not getting laid. We had a guy in an office of 40 people who was a little OCD. He would circle the entire room full of cubicles, it's just one big open floor, about 3 or 4 times, and then go in the men's restroom. If you entered the restroom while he was in there, you would see 2 bare feet on one of those paper toilet covers. His pants and shirt would be hung over the stall while he sat and pooped. He would also talk to his brother about sports on the phone. Do you think Green Bay has a chance? Plop. It happened about once a week for the 3 years that I worked there. Eventually we all learned not to go into the restroom for those 40 minutes. TL. Doctor, this guy at work would poop naked and talk on his cell phone for 40 minutes at a time. We used to play poker underneath a nuclear reactor. We all had top security clearance and nobody else could get into that room without us knowing about it. My uncle, who is no longer my uncle on account of divorce, had a real short temper. We were electricians finishing up a very large, very expensive medical building. My uncle was the foreman of this particular job. Before finishing a project, it is customary to do a walk around with the owner, tenant and whatnot. At one point the owner asked that we move an electrical outlet to the other side of the wall. My uncle, in all his short-tempered glory, kicked the outlet right through the wall, looked at the owner with a completely straight face and said, "Anything else I can do for you?" Full stop. It was awesome. He was fired. Then he got divorced from my aunt. He's no longer my uncle. He's just my friend now. We go shooting all the time. I figure if he's gonna snap again, I want him on my side. We go shooting all the time. I figure if he's gonna snap again, I want him on my side. Sounds reasonable. Given that being in front of him might cost you your life. Probably too late. But worked at an AT&T call center. Graveyard shift. We had TVS up around the call center to watch the news, old movies when the calls got slow. Suddenly the channel change came up, which is normal when Cinemax hits its late night shows. Instead of the news though, it went to the PRN selection. At this point the call center staff is chanting PRN 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 and the menu is selected. Then the "will you accept charges" menu comes up. Again, this is on all of the TVS in the call center. We start chanting yes yes yes. Lo and behold, the yes is clicked and there is a woman spread eagle doing unspeakable things to herself. We start laughing and see 2 supervisors at full tilt towards the security office. Apparently the security didn't know the TV he had in his office controlled the entire building. Worked as a tech support. Front desk. With an ISP. A client told me that any email he sent was always returned to him. I asked him if he knew the mailer demon error message. He said he didn't know what I was talking about, and proceeded to pull out 2 or 3 envelopes with an email address written on them, completed with a stamp. That's shockingly stupid. But my goodness, is it also adorable. Used to work in a deli with a remote order station in front of the counter. People can put in their order into the machine and come back later for their stuff. The workers hated that thing since all it did was just add to our workload. When things were crazy at the counter. One especially busy Sunday. One of the dudes just lost it. He marched to the machine and punched it so hard it fell over. Took off his apron and marched out of the store. I think he got canned soon after. Also, when I left the job at the end of the summer, one of the guys there threatened to kill me if I came back ever again. Which I did the next summer cause I couldn't find anything better. True story. While interviewing for my first job, I was with 2 other candidates. We were to be interviewed by separate managers. I saw the first candidate assigned to an empty manager's office, who then promptly sat down and lit up a cigarette. He didn't get the job. I still have no idea why this guy thought it would be a good idea to do this in an interview in a non-smoking office. Because 2 more weeks of unemployment benefits. At my first job ever, I worked with a meth head. Like he did meth in the bathroom. Meth? He had worked there for 2 years and never got caught. One day he came up to me after the store closed, this was a grocery store, and asked if I could cover the last hour of his shift since he covered an hour for me earlier this week. I said sure, and he was so excited that he took a bottle of Windex off the shelf and took a drink of it. True story. I will never forget the day our GM almost got us shut down. I worked at a Fuddruckers and he brutally murdered an opossum that was outside our back doors on the patio by hitting it over the head a few times with a hammer and then stabbing it repeatedly with a prep knife. In front of about 20 elderly women. A guy once sneezed on his hand about 4 times till there was enough mucus to warrant a wet floor sign. Then he rubbed it on his crotch and winked at a customer. He still works there. Dude got in trouble for bringing strippers back to the office at like 2 AM after bar close. He ate them on the conference room table and then stole some computers. First week at my last internship. I saw one of my co-workers pick up his desk phone and power bomb it to the ground. It shattered everywhere. As it was a big phone. He stormed off and didn't come back for a few hours. He later denied it. And kept saying that it fell off the desk. Also, a co-worker in a separate department witnessed a co-worker army crawling out of her cubicle, through the hallway, and onto the elevator. Nobody ever saw her again. That place makes people crazy. I work in a fairly large factory. This one guy, upon getting fired, rode his motorcycle all around the shop floor. The shop foreman chased him around for like 10 minutes before he finally left. Pretty epic goodbye, I'd say. Someone took her in a wastebasket. The owner of the small.com found it and proceeded to angrily carry the bucket around and ask each employee, "Did you take a smash in this waste bucket?" while holding it in front of our faces. Of course everyone denied it. I later heard that he very nearly fired every single employee and started over. But obviously thought better of it. Best day at work ever. Back in my days of working at Lowe's, I had an especially lazy employee that was always searching for inventive new ways to sleep during his hours. After hiding behind plants or aisle caps in lumber for a few weeks, he kicked things up a notch by opening the door displays and sleeping on the inside of the aisle. After reviewing some video footage from the HR office, we discovered his sleeping nook, which was furnished with a number of pillows, blankets, assorted electronic devices, and a battery-powered lamp. He was fired soon after. But it was the most impressive display of workplace ingenuity I had witnessed being put towards sleep. At that time, caught an employee yelling at my toaster after hours on the security camera. First week working a new shift, I go to see what my co-worker is doing and I find him drinking Everclear, 95%. Not the wannabe, straight from the bottle. He got fired a few weeks later for crashing a forklift into the garage door. I wonder if he's dead yet. I have a co-worker that's very similar to Vince Masuka from Dexter. He has a thing for prostitutes and always has to tell everyone about it. For the longest time everyone at the office thought he was just a lying perv that liked to talk. But we found out at our Christmas party of 2010 that he wasn't kidding. Kathy, the manager of my floor of our building, walked in on him with not one but 2 hookers in our employee bathroom. Not to mention he was videotaping it. The most interesting part was that he didn't stop after he was caught. They finished for another 10 to 15 minutes. He was relieved of his duties after we went back to work after New Year's. I think he's seeing a sex therapist. I worked at a startup company and the owner hired his special needs brother as a project manager. So he was overqualified. I had a patient of mine in the ER where I work take his colostomy bag off and start swirling it around over his head like an overzealous stripper. Thanks to our lovely friend Physics. This sent the contents of the bag flying all over the room like a damn sprinkler. That was a time Monday. Watched a co-worker throw a fresh out the oven pizza at a customer after they commented on her rack. I was working at a large retail chain and I'm a big guy, so the store manager asked me to be present when he fired one of the other managers. The guy was getting fired because he hit one of the other managers in a disagreement. The store manager was super cool. But obviously that kind of behavior is not tolerable. So, when he found out he was getting fired for violent behavior, he ironically took a swing at the store manager. Since it was expected, the manager caught the punch and looked him straight in the face and told him the police were on the way. Then he proceeded to trash the break room for a few minutes before running out the back door into the woods. The store manager yelled, "Run, Forrest." My best friend and I were working in the same place and one day he decided to quit. Our boss was an equal opportunity hater and my friend wanted to make sure our boss knew how much everyone despised him. So he borrowed a brush from a female co-worker and pulled almost a handful of hair out of it. He walked up to the boss, put the wad of hair on his desk and stood there for a moment until boss man finally said, "Okay, you got me. What's this? Full stop. Friend, I shaved my ass so you can kiss it, mother. I quit." The look on the boss's face was priceless. He sat back in his chair, took off his glasses, looked dumbfounded for a few moments and said, "Okay, you can leave." My buddy said, "Nope. You escort me out. I have a few things to get off my chest." He let him know how he felt all the way out to the parking lot. When we were lining up to sign in with the finger scanner, this guy just randomly loses his mind, screams and kicks it clean off the wall. True story. Working at a UK electricity company office a decade ago. Needless to say, it's a very laddish environment. This big lad comes back from the toilet, and his mate shouts across the office at him, "You've just been for a wank." Full stop. Big lad flaps his dick out in the middle of the office and replies, "It would have a sticky end if I had." Mixed gender office, of course. There were women there. A naked man running through traffic high on meth. I'm an EMT. I work at a restaurant where we have a lunch buffet during weekdays. One of our employees is a first responder and she is also in the National Guard. She witnessed an old man at the buffet crash to the floor, grabbing his chest. Superstar employee proceeds to perform CPR and dude pukes in her mouth. She spits it out on the floor next to him, pukes, and continues with CPR. As all of this is happening, people are walking around them to get more food from the buffet because they had to eat quickly and make it back to work. Edit. The gentleman did not make it. The girl across from me actually works. She might just be better at hiding Reddit than you. I used to be the first one in at a bakery cafe every morning. One morning I went in, turned on the oven's lights, music as I did every morning. About 20 seconds after I had turned the lights on, I see the owner of the cafe laying in one of the lounge chairs with his shirt half off and his pants around his ankles. I didn't ask. Not really that crazy. But I'm a PC tech and we have rules about not moving computers. I was walking down a hallway and a teacher holding a computer came around a corner on the hall I was walking. She immediately sees me and does a heel turn with the computer in her hands and runs back to where she got it. I didn't see her run. But when I came around the corner she was nowhere to be seen. Did you yell, "Stop," in the name of the IT department? Question mark. Disgruntled. Recently made redundant employee S in the file cabinet. In conference room. During meeting. Boss gets up, walks to the corner of the room, and while still talking unzips his pants and S in a fake plant. He then sits back down like nothing happened. Still mid-sentence. I used to work on cruise ships. On my very first week working I helped set up the orchestra to play in the central auditorium. While they were playing the weather took a turn for the worse and the ship started to rock back and forth. Well, in between songs, as the MD was talking to the audience, the ship started to tilt pretty badly. A man in the wheelchair started to roll across the dance floor to the sound of the drummers rolling on his snare. The poor old man went right into a section of plants and flew out of his chair to the sound of the drummer hitting his crash cymbal. It was the most comically timed thing I have ever seen. Needless to say, I laughed and the drummer got the axe. But I worked on ships for 2 years and saw plenty of people do plenty of stupid. Good times really. TL. Doctor had a fire drill and co-worker ran down the deck of the ship in nothing but his underwear. Cowboy boots? AWW, he forgot his guitar in the panic. It seems like maybe this question is geared more toward office workplaces, but I worked at a sketchy pool hall for a year and saw some pretty wacky things. I saw the guy getting choked out. Drug deals going down. A trunk full of knockoff designer purses. Countless arrests. A woman passed out with her head on the table. A dude dressed like Alf. Someone trying to smoke a cigarette while sitting right in front of me at the bar. Smoking is banned. A guy got punched right in front of my face. Gambling. Prostitution. My co-worker making out with 2 women at the end of the bar while we were working. Drugs in the tip jar. And heard, didn't actually witness, a dude smashing a toilet in the men's bathroom, which resulted in flooding and ceramic shards everywhere. Among other things. Use a forklift to lift a person about 25 feet in the air to grab just 1 box of cheese ITZ from a pallet on the top rack of storage. I was the one on the forklift. Safety codes. I work at a TV station. I've been here for about 5 years now. When I first started, about 6 months in, there was a station-wide email about someone smearing all over the stalls in the men's bathroom. And the janitorial service quit on the spot. Now, again, this is a TV news station with reputable people in an average market. I don't think they ever found out who did it, but I always had my suspicions. This happened before I started working, but an ex-employee at my retail job was working at the cash. A client put down her items and her drink on the counter. The employee then said that she hadn't tried that drink yet from Starbucks, or wherever it was from, and picked it up, put the straw in her mouth, and drank some. All the other employees were stunned, as well as that poor client. My boss had to do a payout to give the girl some money to buy a new drink. I used to work at Culver's when I was in high school. There was a really stupid kid that worked with me. My boss didn't like him at all. My boss was a douche lord. He drove a nice car. He hit that dumb kid with his car in the parking lot, and the kid was so stupid that my boss actually convinced him to pay for the resulting dent in the hood. The kid was fine. Still dumb though. 20 years back, I worked at a bank and had to get coins out of the vault for our cash desk. Caught my colleague banging the secretary in the vault. Colleague quit the job soon after. Traveled the world and is now the owner of a glossy magazine in Mexico City. There was a guy I worked with at McDonald's a few years back. He came in for a morning shift after being up for a couple of days straight and under the influence of various substances. He spent an hour running around the staff room with no trousers on looking for his polka dot uniform that he swore he put in his bag, and then came into the kitchen pushing himself along the floor apologizing for being late because his boat was dead and he had to swim to work. He proceeded to try and work, and when the Big Mac buns told him how much of his mum was, he buggered off. Co-worker came into work drunk off his ass. Continued to drink at his desk that day. Then walked behind the boss, who was escorting a client down the stairs to the door, and proceeded to tumble down the stairs onto both of them. We still have the client and he still works here. Got so drunk on whiskey that I crashed on my office couch and only woke up the next afternoon. Are you Don Diapa? I had a female co-worker that showed me her photo shoot in Purely 18 magazine once. She was eventually let go after it came out that she was blowing co-workers in one of the breakout rooms. It wouldn't have been such a big deal. But the salespeople she was blowing, about 8 of them, had a gambling pool going to see which of them could get blown first each day. They'd throw in $20 and whoever got the first hammer took the pot. Tons of people got canned over it after they caught her on video after someone snitched. Shortly thereafter, windows were installed in the breakout room doors. And her name was like Voldemort for a little while, say out loud upon pain of termination. She's a very nice girl. Cleaned up her act considerably in the past few years. We're Facebook friends now.